Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Paragon. So it's come to my attention that the Whisperknife is excelling far better than the Assassin at AoE damage on the Rogue class. So this is primarily due to the fact that there seems to be some situation where Killing Storm can proc Razor action a whole lot more, giving it an additional 200 magnitude on each of its hits. On top of that, the Whisperknife has the major benefit of when you leave stealth, you'll maintain combat advantage against all targets around you for an additional 5 seconds. Not to mention that the Whisperknife has a bunch of other things that will also make it better. So we enter stealth, we cast our Killing Storm, that creates this burst, and with Razor action we get all of those extra hits. We look on the combat tracker here and we can see Razor action has done over 1.6 million damage. That is crazy. Add that with Killing Storm and we have a daily power which has done over 2 million damage. You barely even get that on a single target daily power against a dummy. Now let's get that compared up against when we cast Whirlwind of Blades from stealth. Here we go. And we'll also get Razor action to proc. We can see when we look at our outgoing damage that Whirlwind of Blades has done, sure, over 550,000 damage, along with that Razor action dealing just over 100,000 damage. But still, that only adds up to 660,000 damage compared to the 2 million dealt with Killing Storm. And this is a huge benefit for the Whisperknife. So let's go over this build. I'm generally going to go over it pretty quickly. So initially on our powers, we're using Shuriken Toss as our multi-target hitting at will, another benefit over the Assassin, along with Disheartening Strike to help kill off that tanky enemy that's left standing. Then for our encounter powers, we're similarly using Blade Fury, and we'll use it from stealth for the extra hit, and we're also using Path of Blades for that damage over time effect for all enemies around us, along with Blitz, and we would use Blitz instead of Smoke Bomb because its cooldown is so much faster. Smoke Bomb does have the benefit of dazing enemies, and you'll really notice that in PvP. So if you need the extra survivability, by all means take Smoke Bomb, but Blitz will help you with that extra damage. Daily powers, you're using Killing Storm paired with Razor action for that massive damage, and then we're also using Advantageous Position to give us that extra combat advantage time for another 5 seconds after leaving stealth. So you can literally enter stealth, go use Path of Blades, then you can use all your other encounter powers and still have combat advantage against all the targets around you. That's crazy powerful. Then for our feats, we're using Last Moments, we're using Dark Reimbursement, we're using one with the Shadows, Shadow Opportunity, and finally Ambusher's Haste. Let's move to our character. Now here we have a setup with our main statistics. We want to be capping out these offense stats for the most damage, along with giving us lots of item level for more base damage. So we have our power capped out, accuracy we've kind of abandoned, combat advantage we're capping that out as well since we can take full advantage of it. We have crit strike, which will get buffed up from our Bone Devil's Ribcage, Gristrow Horns, and also our precision from our companion. And then we have our critical severity, which will get buffed up by our Bone Devil's Ribcage. And we move to our gear, and this is the setup I have here, using Lionheart within AoE fights because you just want that burst damage at the beginning of the fight to kill off those enemies real quick. Then we're also using our music box set, which will give us that extra damage after we've cast our daily power. Then we have our storyteller journals, where we're also gaining that extra stacks of percentage power, along with that additional hit whenever we crit, along with giving us additional attribute points. Of course, I'd be better off using a Ring of Air here in my left ring, but I just haven't managed to obtain it yet. If you have any other further questions upon different gear pieces and what to use, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Just make sure you don't duplicate somebody else's comment that I've already answered, because that's just a bit annoying. As for enchantments, in my offense, you can see I have Radiance there, but you ideally want those triple stat enchantments like Gigantics or Assassins. As for utility, doesn't particularly matter, I'm just using an Azure, and make sure to also pick up a Tenebrous as that will help out your damage. And as for defense, well, you can just use whatever you have available to you. In the end of the day, you're just looking for the item level. For our armor enchantment, I'm using a Fire Burst, will give that bit more damage, And for a weapon enchantment, I'm using a lightning. As for my overloads, you can see I'm using those greater corrupt black ice enchantments. They'll give me that more action point gain. As for my feet, I could switch out to these primal assault boots, as they will give me extra action points whenever I kill enemies. That can be very good if you're within a dungeon and you're dominating and killing the most enemies, and you'll be able to cast this killing storm a whole lot more often. So we're going to move to our companions, and here we just have Xuna, or you could use Regis. He's pretty good as well in some situations. And for my equipment, I'm just using these items here. Give me crit severity and combat advantage, along with all those indomitable runestones. Then for my companion equip powers and enhancement, I'm using precision there, the golden cat, flame sprite, black dragon iron stone, Staldorf, and also the alchemist. So we move to the mounts, and in the stable here I'm using the Pegasus for that magnificent inspiration. It deals a hefty ton of AoE damage, especially when you cast it from stealth, and I'm using ferocious predator just for those ratings. In the stable here we have a bunch of insignias. Majority are brutalities and dominance. They'll give me that power and crit severity, and also power and forte will give me more of that combat advantage and also power percentage. You can see I'm in the process of upgrading them to mythic, but it's not really a big rush as we don't have content that is particularly challenging at the moment. Then we have our collars, and ideally you want to get this encounter one for AoE, and also at the bottom down here either crit severity, recharge speed, or action point gain. Those doesn't particularly matter, just like having my stats nice and high. As for our boons, you want all of these offense ones right here. Then you also want marathon runner, and then start working on getting those damage and damage resistance buffs against those certain enemy types. Tier 5, you want that forte along with either recharge speed or that action points. Finally, on the master boon, we're taking bloodlust. Guild stronghold, I'm using the power, and I'm also using this defense bonus along with utility. It's either mount speed or it's movement speed. Can of course use revive sickness if you're running content where you're going to be using some scrolls. As for my buffs, I'm generally using a superior flask of potency, which I have all ran out of. I'm also using Sunlord's elixir. You could use watermelon sorbet, but for my build I don't need it, so I'm running stuff like hot wings, which would give me that crit severity and also accuracy. So that's my Whisperknife build, and my oh my, it does sure kick ass, especially within Vault of Stars, in that area where you have the forest and you navigate through protecting Lumi. You can see my fights here now, and you just do insane amounts of damage, and within a few seconds everything's dead. You can see my act log here at the end. Razor action just dealing a ton of damage. Of course, Blade Fury and those other encounter powers can be a bit more consistent just because you can cast them all the time. Razor action you'll only be able to cast every minute or so, depending on how long you're in combat and how many buffs you have for your action point gain. So I'd like to give a special thank you to all of my channel members for helping me keep my channel going. And if I presented as well, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.